my favorite thing about Australian toll roads? Well, you pay for them forever. Not until the road is paid off, not until construction costs are recovered. No, forever. Which is honestly impressive when you think about it, because apparently in Australia, once a road is built, it enters the afterlife. The debt dies, but the toll reincarnates. You just drive through the gates, hear the beep, lose another $14. But one day I stopped and thought, hang on a second, who actually owns this road? Or more importantly, why does it feel like we're constantly paying rent in a country we are supposedly, well, already own? So before we crack on with the rest of the show, do me a favor. I'm working very hard to grow this channel because I'm on a mission to say the things a lot of people are thinking but either don't know how to say or are too afraid to say it out loud. And here's the truth. There's only so long you can keep calling out the system before the system turns around and starts paying attention to you. That's why I need your help. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share this with your friends and family, and if you believe I'm saying the things you wish you could say out loud, then support the work by joining my Patreon. The link is in the description. And in return, I'll keep speaking the truth, unfiltered, unhindered, and without apology, until the people in power remember who they were elected to serve. My mission is simple: to educate, to enlighten, to empower, and to elevate. So together, we can inspire the change our communities and this nation desperately needs. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Emeka Unfiltered. This is the Emeka Edwin Show by Appointed Media. Now, let's get to it. I started looking into this stuff properly, and once you start pulling the thread, you realize it's everywhere. Roads, ports, utilities, energy, infrastructure, entire chunks of the country that ordinary people assumed belong to the public don't really belong to them anymore. And that's when it clicked for me. Countries behave exactly like people do. Some build wealth, some sell pieces of themselves to survive. And unfortunately, the West has increasingly been behaving like the spender we talked about in the last episode. Short on cash today, so we sell tomorrow. Think about it like this. Imagine you're struggling financially. So instead of fixing the actual problem, you start selling parts of your house. First, you sell the garage to your neighbor, then you sell the shed to another distant neighbor or maybe a relative. Then maybe you rent out a room. At first, it feels smart because money is coming quickly. You feel relieved. But over time, something strange starts to happen. You still live in the house, but less and less of it actually belongs to you. The problem with debt is that eventually you run out of today's money. And when governments don't want to make difficult decisions, they start looking for assets, things they can lease, privatize, sell off, or I guess, partner with. And they always package it so beautifully. If somebody comes to your house and buys your driveway for 99 years to park their car, that's not a partnership. You sold the driveway. These things don't just generate money. They generate control, because if you own the thing people need to use, you don't even need to tax them anymore. You can just charge them forever, like our roads. This is why toll roads are such a fascinating psychological experiment, because most people assume the toll exists to pay for the roads. Makes sense, right? Except sometimes the road gets paid off and the toll stays, which means the toll was never really about paying off the road anymore. The road became the excuse for permanent revenue stream. And once governments realize they can create systems where citizens continuously pay forever without calling it a tax, well, now you've discovered something about the modern economics. This is exactly what we talked about in the bucket that ate the West. Once the bucket got too big, The system needed more water, but instead of producing its own water for ourselves, we borrowed it. And eventually, when borrowing isn't enough anymore, you start selling access to the bucket itself. That's what's happening here. We are not funding the system's future anymore. We're simply liquidating it. Now, here's where this gets really rather uncomfortable, because once external money starts funding your infrastructure, external influence starts creeping in too. And this isn't conspiracy stuff. If someone finances enough of your systems, owns enough of your assets, or holds enough of your debt, they don't need to invade you. They just need to apply a little bit of pressure, and that's how modern power works. Pretty quietly, financially, systematically, and this is why I keep saying nations behave exactly like individuals. There are savers that build assets, and there are spenders that sell them. Well, guess which one Australia is? A builder thinks long term. A consumer thinks about surviving this month. And over time, those patterns compound for people and for countries. You know what's really wild? Most people think we are rich because life still looks rich. The building's standing there, isn't it? The roads are pretty smooth. The supermarket's always full. But wealth isn't about appearance of being rich. Real wealth is about ownership. And the moment you stop owning the systems that sustain your society, you may still live in the country, but increasingly, we're paying the rent to be inside it. So what's the solution? Honestly, we need to start thinking long-term again. Infrastructure should have sunset clause. Public assets like our roads should return to the public. Production should matter again. And governments should stop behaving like gamblers trying to survive one more weekend at the bloody Vegas. Because eventually, you run out of things to sell. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Edwin Nweze Show, where I, your host Emeka, gets unfiltered with the truth as I see it. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Godspeed.